8 is old enough. It's not old enough, but it's necessary because I can't hide the entire world from him. So I'm starting to have conversations with an 8-year-old boy who would love to remain innocent, and I would love to remain innocent. I have to start preparing him for things that you shouldn't have to prepare an 8-year-old for. It makes the joy of fatherhood a lot more complicated.
As a journalist, you never want to become part of this story under any circumstances, but this one feels personal to so many of us, including to my colleague and friend, MSNBC correspondent Trymaine Lee. We are both, as they say, girl dads. Trymaine joins me now. And you know, we're no longer worrying about just men. We're also worried about our daughters as well, young ladies. We've been on the ground together, you and I, reporting on this one, but so many shootings before, so many deaths before. I have to ask you, from your perspective, why does what we are seeing feel different right now? Are you encouraged that there's going to be some real and lasting change from all of this?
Wow, Craig, that's a lot in that question. On one hand, the idea of encouragement, I'll answer that now. We've seen the pendulum shift. When there is great progress, there is always a backlash. So I'm not necessarily encouraged. I think we're seeing signs of things that we haven't seen in generations in terms of a collective sense of wanting to move this country forward. But as you mentioned, our daughters, you know, our black girls are not immune to the violence of the state, the violence of the system, or violence in communities at all. So we also need to redouble our efforts to make sure that our little girls are fortified. And I've been listening to the conversation you've been having with folks all night, right? And it's about the talk, preparing our young men, especially, and our children to move through a world that is sometimes hostile. Their physical selves we care about. We both looked in a mother's eyes or a father's eyes whose child left and never came back. And we don't want that to be our child. But I think it's also so important to fortify our children emotionally. Right, Craig? I think back to when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was sitting with my mother, and we watched on the news the Philadelphia Police Department drop bombs on Osage Avenue in Philadelphia, a black community, and having this conversation about how unjust and unfair the world is. But she always buoyed that with, I am somebody. She'd say, I am, and I would say somebody. And filled me with a sense of pride, filled me with a sense of self. So when we're navigating these spaces, we have to make sure our children's physical well-being is taken care of, but their emotional well-being as well. And as we're in the business of trading on news and trading on these images. And so I've tried to make sure I contextualize this stuff for my daughter, make sure that she knows that, you know, even going way back, they had to take the strongest among us, the best among us, those who taught white folks how to plant rice, how to be craftsmen in different ways, right? Reminding her that even though the world is unjust, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. And I think it does get hard when we see the spectacle of black death as we've seen it. And we see black men being shot in the back on camera. We see black men being kneeled upon until they take their last breaths, right? It's hard to navigate with little minds. But when we start early, and I think we frame it up right, we frame it up who they are and whose they are and the strength they have inside of them, it makes it just a little bit easier, Craig.
Trymaine, I know your daughter, she's a little older than my girl. My girl's 3, your daughter's 7. She'll be 8 this fall. Are you already exposing her to some of what we are experiencing as journalists? I mean, do you let her watch the news? Or if the news is on, like, are you trying to explain what's happening, or do you let her ask the questions?
Yeah. I try to, give it in age-appropriate doses, but we started very young. Matter of fact, just to rewind a little bit, we celebrated her 7th birthday last year in Ghana. And we were in the slave dungeons together. And she stood in the front of the group as the guide explained how people were captured and how they lived and how they died and how they were transported, right? We've had these conversations a lot. And now, of course, because of COVID-19, a lot of the work is happening at home, right? So she hears me having these conversations. I don't want to necessarily shield her from the realities of life. I want to arm her with the full context, right? So she asked questions. It was so interesting. Just 3 or 4 days ago, we were watching the news, and there was this woman, I'm not sure where she was from, but she was explaining why young people are breaking windows, and she explained the frustration and anger. But she said, you know, they're lucky that we're asking for equality and not vengeance, right? They're lucky we're asking for equality. And my daughter looked at me, and she said, Daddy, we're only asking for equality. You know, we don't want to hurt anyone. And that was a moment there saying, yes, right? The long line from way back of black folks fighting for their rights, forcing America to be the best democracy it could be each and every turn, as black folks are doing now with the help of some allies, right? Equality, the fight. So I think I'm always trying to make sure it's framed up properly so that she knows it's not because of her, that this is an extension that goes way back in terms of fighting for equality and democracy in America. And she gets it. She gets it. Again, she's only 8 years old, going on 18 years old, Craig. But she's starting to the machine and the cogs are starting to turn. And it's almost a joy to me to see her awakening. And even though this is tough news and it's hard, it's life and death and brutality and systems and these big ideas, in her mind, again, when she says, Daddy, we're asking for equality, not vengeance. So I try to give her what we can because we have to arm them. She's going to be a young woman someday, 18, 19, 20 years old, going through college, going through the workplace, engaging with white friends. She's going to have to grapple with this no matter what. So I figure at least arm her and inoculate her to some degree.
Well, your daughter will most certainly be armed. Trymaine Lee, I always enjoy our conversations. Love you, brother. Thank you for your time this evening. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to subscribe to Trymaine's podcast. It's called Into America. He hosts it, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank all of you for participating in this conversation with us. I'm Craig Melvin, and I want to leave you with this special message from singer, songwriter, and perhaps her most important title in this moment, Mother. Here's Angie Stone.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Angie Stone. Let me just say thank you and make you aware that we're approaching the 20th year of the recording as one of the most prolific songs that happens to fit our agenda yet again today. 20 years ago, we recorded the song Brother. Here it is 20 years later, and it's still carrying the banner of relevancy. I just want to say to my people, stand for something or continue to fall for anything. Stop the killing. It is not necessary. Stop the hate. It is not necessary. Stop the slaughtering. We can do better. Family, friends, brothers, sisters, let's come together as one. We have an agenda to form peace. I want you to know that I'm here for you forever true, 'cause you're my black brother, strong brother, and there is no one above you. I want you to know that I'm here for you forever true. He's misunderstood. Some say that he's up to no.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.